Hey guys, this is episode 3 of the series Let's Make a Game 2.5D platformer. Today we'll be looking at building up the level, some basics of level design, and restarting a level when the player falls out. As an added bonus, we will also make the player's movement smoother. If you haven't watched the previous episode, make sure to watch that so you'll be all caught up with the project. You can access it using the card or in the video description. If you're new to the series, make sure to check out the playlist in the video description. Quick disclaimer, I am not an expert when it comes to game design, but I'd still like to share what I know with my fellow up-and-coming game developers. This is mostly to get new game developers on their feet so they can start learning for themselves and is by no means a perfect guide. Now that that's settled, let's get started. Right now, we have a moving and jumping player and 2 platforms, but 2 platforms is a little sad. There's no real challenge, no lessons learned, and no room to grow. A level is basically a way to teach the player a new concept, test them on it, refine their skills, and conclude it. The reason games are fun is because we're learning something new. It's basically an assignment, but instead of regurgitating information like you would at school, you get taught and tested on a new skill in a matter of a few minutes. One game design philosophy I've seen that I really like is named Kishōtenketsu. It's a classic Chinese storytelling structure, later adopted by Japanese and Koreans. It has 4 parts: the introduction, development, twist, and conclusion. It's widely adopted by game studios, notably Nintendo with their Super Mario games, because of the way it can teach a player something new in a simple yet fun way. The difficulty curve goes something like this, building in intensity until the difficulty drops with the conclusion. When we apply this to our level design, we need to choose the lesson for the player to learn in the level. In this case, the only thing we have to teach the player is to move and jump, so let's base our level around jumping. Before we begin, I'd like to tweak the movement a little bit. Right now it's a little jerky and doesn't feel very good to play, at least to me. So let's open the player move script. Declare a public float Lerp. What's Lerp? I know it's a stupid sounding word, but it's actually short for linear interpolation. Basically, it returns a number in between point A and point B with a specific percentage. When you set a number to Lerp to another number every frame, it results in a smooth transition between the 2 numbers. This public variable will be how fast that smoothing will occur. Also declare a private float run.Lerp. This is going to determine the speed, smooth that over every frame. Delete this whole if horizontal statement because we're going to make something better. In its place, put run.Lerp equals Mathf, a way of doing a bunch more complex math functions, .Lerp, run.Lerp, horizontal axis, Lerp. This will smoothly move run.Lerp to 1 when inputting to the right and smoothly move it to -1 when inputting to the left. Now put rb.movePosition vector3.right times speed times time.delta time times run.Lerp plus transform.position. This is similar to what we had before, but now it will move affected by a run.Lerp value, so the movement will be smooth and not jerky like before. Save and build, and set Lerp to something in between 0 and 1. 1 will be instant like before, and 0 will make it not move at all. I put 0.5. Test it out! Now we can get to our level editing. To start off, let's make a few more platform prefabs. We already have 1, the regular platform, but I'd like to add a few more. Drag another platform into the scene, rename it Tall Platform, and set the scale to 10, 10, 2. Make sure its Z position is 0. Drag it back into the prefabs folder, and voila, we have another platform. Drag another platform prefab into the scene, rename it Small Platform, and bump its scale down to 5, 1, 1. Delete the platforms we have in the level, and let's start it from scratch. Quick question, do you know how to move objects around? Let's left click the player and drag it with red arrow or the green arrow. If you hold Control for Windows users, I think it's Command for Mac users, while dragging it, it'll snap to regular values. By default, it's 0.25. This is how we'll be building a level. I'll start you off with the first part of the level, and then leave it a little open-ended from there. Since we want to give the player a safe space to learn how to jump, we're not going to let them fall off any cliffs in the beginning. So we'll start off by dragging some tall platforms into the scene. When you drag them in, make sure that their Z values are 0. This way they will line up with the player. We'll make another one to the right and lower down, and another one at the same height as the first, but to the right. We're going to introduce jumping with a small gap first, and then make a bigger gap, but still with no punishment for falling. One more to the right and down, and another one at the original level and to the right. There's the introduction to our level. Hopefully the player will realize that they have to jump over these pits and get a quick feel for the controls before the challenge develops. Next up, for the level's development phase, I added some platforms and small platforms to the right of the introduction phase, and now the stakes are a little higher if the player doesn't jump correctly. This part is open-ended, so you can design it however you want. Just remember the difficulty curve. If you're stuck, you can always copy what I'm doing too. Also make sure that the player can always see the next platform. You don't want to frustrate the player because they don't know where to go next, and most players won't jump off cliffs for no reason. I said most players. Some players just enjoy watching the character die. For this next phase, the twist, I decided to add some platforms, but with the rotation 0090. This is different from what the player has seen before, and it adds a lot greater of a challenge, and it's more likely for the player to fall, raising the stakes even higher. For the conclusion, I finished the level off testing what the player has learned about jumping using the different parts of the level. You can choose to make this last part difficult to give the player one last challenge, or you can go ahead and stick with the original difficulty curve, giving the player some time to cool off, kind of like a workout. Remember to playtest often. Normally my workflow is to add something new, test it, tweak it until I like it, test it again, repeat if necessary, and then continue from there. You can also mess around with the player's speed and jump height, and the camera's offset. Remember, it's your game. Once you're happy with your level, we can move on. And remember, you can always tweak it later. Don't get too bogged down on making a perfect level, because that takes a very, very long time, sometimes forever. It's better to get a less than perfect level finished than to never finish a level. In your scene hierarchy, there's now a lot of platforms. There's a way to organize them. You can't have folders in your scene hierarchy, but you can have something like it. Create an empty, set its position to 000, rename it level or something like that. Now drag all of your platforms into it. To make things faster, you can select multiple objects in the scene hierarchy using Shift. Now we're going to make a restart when the player falls out of the world, so they don't fall endlessly and you have to manually restart the game. In the scene, create another new empty, name it Fall. Click on it, go to the inspector and add a component. Type Box Collider and select Is Trigger, since it will trigger a restart when we program it. Click Edit Collider and drag the edges around in the scene until it covers the entire bottom of the scene. Make sure it's far enough down that the player won't accidentally hit it when they're not supposed to. We're going to give it a special tag so that other objects can recognize it in the scripts when they collide or hit a trigger. In the inspector underneath the name, click Tag, go to Add Tag, click the plus sign and type in Fall. Click the Fall object again and set the tag to our new Fall tag. Then go back to the player move script. We're going to add another function. Type void on trigger enter, and if you press tab it should auto-complete it. This gets triggered when the player hits a trigger, like our fall object. It returns a bunch of values found inside the collider collision. Inside it, type if collision.tag equals, and there's two equal signs here, fall, then curly bracket enter. To restart, we're going to use scenemanager.loadScene. Inside the parentheses, we're going to find the name of the current scene, so put scenemanager.getActiveScene parentheses dot name. Close the parentheses, put the semicolon, save and build. When we test it again, we should restart when the player hits the fall trigger. Congratulations, you've made your very own level. Today you've learned about the basics of level design, triggers, and tags. In the next episode, we'll be adding some more to our level, like collectibles and a goal. If this was helpful, check out the tutorial playlist. You can find all of the episodes there. Subscribe if you want more content like this. And remember guys, life's a game. Have fun with it.